It's hard to fathom the depths of human suffering that unfolded in Cambodia during the 1970s. A radical regime took control and aimed to reshape society by any means necessary, but their vision came at an unthinkable cost. What started as a promise of equality and progress quickly turned into one of the most horrific episodes in modern history. Families were torn apart, villages emptied, and people were stripped of their identities. The lush fields of Cambodia became silent witnesses to the terror, hiding untold stories beneath their soil. But what exactly drove an entire country to such darkness? And what chilling remnants of that time still remain today? The rise of the Khmer Rouge and Pol Pot's radical ideology. In 1975, after years of civil war, the Khmer Rouge took control of Cambodia. Led by Pol Pot, they had a radical vision, transforming the country into a classless, agrarian communist society. Pol Pot was deeply influenced by extreme regimes like Maoist China and North Korea, but his ideas went even further. He wanted to erase modern society entirely and start over at year zero. Once in power, the Khmer Rouge forced millions of people out of cities and into the countryside. Imagine entire cities like Phnom Penh emptied overnight, with doctors, teachers, and families sent to work in brutal labor camps. Pol Pot believed that the future of Cambodia was in farming, so the entire population had to live as peasants. But this wasn't just about hard labor, it was about total control. The Khmer Rouge targeted anyone who they saw as a threat: intellectuals, teachers, and even people who wore glasses. The result was catastrophic. Over 2 million Cambodians died from starvation, execution, or exhaustion in just 4 years. Pol Pot's vision erased Cambodian identity. Religion was banned, monks were killed, and children were brainwashed into serving the regime. The Khmer Rouge's version of utopia was a nightmare of forced labor and mass death. In 1979, Vietnamese forces overthrew the Khmer Rouge, but the damage was done. Cambodia had lost a quarter of its population, and the country was left in ruins. The forced evacuations and mass executions. Once the Khmer Rouge seized power in 1975, they began one of the most brutal social experiments in history. One of their first moves was the forced evacuation of millions of people from cities like Phnom Penh. Imagine this: entire populations were ordered to leave their homes within hours, taking only what they could carry. They were told it was temporary, but in reality they were being herded into rural labor camps to work as farmers. The conditions were brutal. Families were torn apart, with many dying along the way due to exhaustion, starvation, or illness. Those who survived the journey faced backbreaking labor in the countryside. There was barely any food, no medical care, and the constant threat of violence from Khmer Rouge soldiers who patrolled the camps. It was all part of Pol Pot's vision to turn Cambodia into an agrarian utopia. But it was nothing short of a nightmare. But it wasn't just hard labor that made these years so horrifying. The Khmer Rouge saw anyone connected to the old society as enemies. Teachers, doctors, lawyers, anyone educated. Wearing glasses could be enough to mark you for death. These people were labeled as enemies of the state, accused of being spies or traitors. The result? Mass executions. Thousands were taken to places now known as the killing fields, where they were brutally murdered. In many cases, the executions were carried out using simple farm tools to save bullets. Victims were buried in mass graves, and it's estimated that over 1 million people were killed in these fields alone. The Khmer Rouge left no room for mercy. It was all about control, power, and maintaining their twisted vision of society. In just 4 years, their regime was responsible for the deaths of around 2 million Cambodians, nearly a quarter of the country's population. The genocidal tactics and execution of intellectuals. As the Khmer Rouge tightened their grip on Cambodia, their genocidal tactics became even more horrifying. They were determined to eliminate anyone they saw as a threat to their radical vision, especially the intellectuals. If you wore glasses, you could be marked as an enemy of the revolution. Yes, something as simple as needing glasses could cost you your life. To hunt down these supposed enemies, the Khmer Rouge used a variety of brutal methods. They relied on informants and set up a system of fear and paranoia. Neighbors would turn against one another, leading to accusations that often resulted in arrests and executions. Those who were captured faced horrific interrogations, where they were tortured for information. Many were executed shortly after, often in groups, at the infamous killing fields. The scale of this atrocity is staggering. It's estimated that around 1.5 million educated people were killed during this period. But it's not just the numbers that haunt us, it's the evidence left behind. At memorial sites across Cambodia, you can see piles of glasses and personal belongings, shoes, clothing, and other items that once belonged to the victims. These piles serve as stark reminders of the lives brutally taken. When we look at history, the comparison to other genocides is chilling. Just like the haunting scenes at Auschwitz, where the belongings of victims were displayed to showcase the horrors of the Holocaust, these memorials in Cambodia tell a similar story of loss and suffering. The role of indoctrinated youth soldiers in the atrocities. As the Khmer Rouge solidified their power, they turned to an unsettling strategy, indoctrinating children and teenagers to serve as soldiers and enforcers of their regime. This approach was chilling but effective. By recruiting young people, the Khmer Rouge ensured that they had a loyal and easily manipulated force that could carry out their violent agenda. These young soldiers were often as young as 10 years old, stripped of their childhood and thrust into a world of brutality. They were subjected to intense propaganda, designed to instill absolute loyalty to the regime and its radical ideology. The Khmer Rouge glorified violence, teaching these youths that killing was not only acceptable, but necessary for the revolution. They were told that they were fighting for a greater cause, and this twisted belief drove them to commit unspeakable acts. As these indoctrinated youths became soldiers, they were responsible for some of the most horrific acts of violence. Reports indicate that many participated in torture and executions, often showing a shocking lack of empathy. In many cases, they were ordered to kill fellow Cambodians, including their own families. It's difficult to imagine, but some of these young enforcers were so deeply brainwashed that they truly believed they were serving their country by carrying out these atrocities. The Khmer Rouge's strategy of using young soldiers reveals the chilling extent of their brainwashing. They took vulnerable children, stripped them of their innocence, and turned them into instruments of terror. It's a reminder of how dangerous unchecked ideologies can be, particularly when they prey on the young and impressionable. Survivors' stories and the legacy of the killing fields. The stories of survivors from the Khmer Rouge era are powerful testaments to the resilience of the human spirit. Two individuals who stand out are Dith Pran and Dr. Haing S. in Ngor. Their harrowing experiences during the Cambodian genocide became widely known through the Oscar-winning film, The Killing Fields, which brought global attention to the horrors that unfolded in Cambodia. Dith Pran, a photographer and journalist, managed to escape the grip of the Khmer Rouge after enduring unimaginable hardship. He lived in hiding, navigating treacherous conditions and risking his life to survive. His journey was marked by bravery and desperation, and through it all, he held on to hope. Dith's story didn't just end with his survival. Then there's Dr. Haing S. Ngor, who was also a survivor of the Khmer Rouge regime. Before becoming an Oscar-winning actor, he suffered tremendous loss and trauma. Dr. Ngor's family was murdered, and he faced incredible challenges in his life. Yet he found the strength to share his story with the world. His portrayal in the killing fields not only brought his experiences to life, but also helped others understand the depth of human suffering during the genocide. The impact of their stories has been profound. By sharing their experiences, Dith and Dr. Ngor helped the world grasp the full horror of the Cambodian genocide, ensuring that such atrocities would never be forgotten. Today, memorials across Cambodia, including the Choyong Ek killing fields, stand as solemn reminders of the lives lost. These sites are crucial for educating future generations about the brutal reality of the Khmer Rouge regime and the resilience of its survivors. Their stories teach us about the importance of empathy, understanding, and the need to stand against tyranny. If you're moved by these incredible stories of survival and resilience, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Together, we can honor the memory of those who suffered and ensure that their stories continue to resonate with us all.